Hello, and welcome back, all our goodly friends, for another episode of Paranormality.
Bonjour.
Bonjour. How are you feeling today, Josh?
I've got a little bit of a cold, so I might sound a bit nasally.
A little bit of a cold.
Yeah, just a tiny bit.
So, if I were to ask you if you would like to spend mid to late January on top of a mountain in Russia, how would you feel about that?
At the moment, definitely not.
Definitely not.
Actually, at the moment, never.
Never. So can you imagine anybody that would actually want to spend January on top of a mountain in Russia?
No.
No?
Not at all.
Bit of Siberia not doing it for you.
No. Do you know someone that would?
Well, actually, I know about a group of around 10 students that plan to do exactly that. I have my notes here. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the story of what is known to become the Dyatlov Pass Incident.
Oh.
And I'm sure you've probably heard it before. It is a bit of a strange one. Most people will have heard of a bunch of hikers that went hiking through Russia and ended up sort of half naked, wearing each other's clothes and stuff. It's not a very well-known story, but I'd certainly heard of it before. And I've done a fair bit of research. You can see a lot of notes here.
Yeah, whole A4 page. That's good.
Yeah, so we've got a fair bit to cover. So it was in January 1959.
Okay, a few years ago.
It's a little bit of a historical one. 10 students from the Ural Polytechnic Institute decided to go hiking. They were already grade 2 hikers, and they got like ski tour experience. You know, when they walk on their skis, and you've seen that in the
like
Olympic events and that.
Is it like the tennis rackets on their feet?
No, it's skis on their feet, but they kind of walk at the same time.
Right.
You know, so they know what they're doing in that kind of environment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what's going on with my headphones, but yeah, when they planned for about a 3-week expedition.
Mm-hmm.
And when they got back, they would be awarded their grade 3 hiker's certificate, which is the highest that they could get at that time
Top
in
tier.
Russia. Yeah, they would have been professional hikers, sort of thing. So they planned an expedition to go through the Ural Mountains. And like I said, 3-week expedition to get to Otorten Mountain and back. Otorten Mountain is quite a high peak in the Ural mountain range. The Ural mountain range is not far from. I think it might even extend into the Arctic Circle. So we're like northeastern Russia in like Siberia. This is like seriously snowy conditions. January, you know.
God, very, very, very cold.
Very cold. These people would have been experienced enough to know how to deal with that. I mean, the likes of you and I. If anyone challenged us to go out to the middle of Russia in January, we would die, absolutely certainly.
Instantly.
Yeah, we wouldn't last much more than 24 hours.
I've got a question for you.
Go for
Are
it.
there polar bears in this area?
No.
Okay. Is there normal bears in this area?
Probably normal bears,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, definitely. Like black bears and that sort of thing. But yeah, I'll tell you what, I'll give you the list of their names. Mm-hmm. So the leader of the expedition was Igor Dyatlov. That's what the whole incident is named after, because he was the lead on the expedition.
Igor is such a Russian name.
Yeah, well, all of these are quite Russian names, to be classic Russian names. Mm-hmm. Also, they've got, I'm going to try not to butcher these names now, Yuri Doroshenko, Yuri Krivonyshenko, Zenaida Kolmogorova. Sorry if I'm ruining this for Russians. Rustem Slobodin.
That sounds like a soup.
Lyudmila Dubinina, Alexander Zolotaryov, Nikolai Thibault-Brignol, and Alexander Kolevatov, and Yuri Yudin. Now, Yuri Yudin turned back not too far into the expedition because he'd got like joint problems with his like rheumatism and that sort of thing. And he was actually the only surviving member of this party.
Oh, because he turned away at the start.
Because he turned away right at the start. I mean, the 10 of them, they took a train to Ivdel, which is quite sort of a remote region, a little town, and then they caught a bus to a place called Vizhay, where they actually managed to hitchhike in the back of a lorry to like a logging camp, and that was called the 41st Settlement, and that was the last civilization that they would see.
Okay, so where they went is miles from civilization.
Oh yeah,
Wow,
we're talking wilderness. That's where they went out into the wilderness, and they just never came back.
Okay, all right. This sounds like a good mystery.
Yeah. So, like I said, the expedition was meant to be about 3 weeks. Often these things can take a little bit longer, a couple of days here or there. But after 4 weeks, after hearing none of their families have heard back from them, hadn't got a phone call from when they reached civilization again. So they raised the alarm and sent out search parties, mostly like volunteers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
When nobody could find them, the police got involved, and then eventually the military got involved, and they went out there, and on the 26th of February, 1959, they discovered a ruined camp. Like, the tent had been slashed open from the inside out, and 9 sets of footprints led away from the tent, down the mountain, towards, like, a forest. Where they were obviously trying to, I don't know what they were trying to do, to be honest.
Just get away from wherever they were.
Yeah, exactly. They were trying to get away from something, but we don't know what. There's over 75 theories.
75?
Over 75 theories have been brought up by various people on what could have happened to them. Everything ranging from the Yeti to aliens.
I'm a fan of a Yeti.
Well, the Yeti could be plausible if you believe in the Yeti.
I do.
The only thing is, there was only 9 sets of footprints.
So no Yeti
It
prints.
hadn't been snowing on the night that they pitched camp, so the footprints were fresh. If a Yeti had been about, they would have seen another set of footprints, surely.
Yeah.
And they would have been a lot bigger, because it's Bigfoot.
Yeah.
So, yeah, probably not the Yeti. Aliens, again, get kind of blamed for everything. Now, actually, there were, around the time of this disappearance, but not on the actual 26th of February, but around about the 20th of February, there were reports of flashing lights in the skies in the region, just odd light effects in the sky. So that is one reason why aliens have been sort of reported in this instance.
Yeah.
But I don't know. There's a thin tether on that one, isn't there? I mean,
there's only so much you can use the alien excuse, isn't it?
Yeah. I think this is a much deeper mystery than what aliens can explain, in all honesty. Because, like I say, 9 sets of footprints leading away from a tent that's been slashed open from the inside. We don't know why. Some of the footprints were shoe footprints, or hiking boots. Some of them looked like these people were just wearing socks.
In the cold?
Yeah, in the cold. Minus like 20 degrees Celsius.
Yeah.
Or 30 degrees minus 30. I mean, this place can get really cold. I mean, this is close to the coldest place on Earth, which gets down to like minus 70.
We're talking like frostbite kind of weather.
Yeah, frostbite would set in very quickly. Some of the footprints didn't even have socks. They were barefoot. Why anybody would want to walk out in Siberia in the middle of the night in January in bare feet?
Yeah.
We can't even imagine.
That's a mystery in itself.
It is. I mean, they must have been terrified of something.
Yeah.
But
they wanted to get out there quick.
But the footprints didn't necessarily look like they were running away from the tent. They were just walking. Which is, again, very strange. I mean, why would you cut open your tent, head out into the wilderness with no shoes on at a dawdling pace?
Yeah.
It's very strange. Very, very strange. Anyway, Like I say, the military did conduct a search, and they followed the footprints, and they found two of the explorers, Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Krivonishenko. They were found. They'd actually made themselves a little campfire next to the woods. They were only half dressed. They're pretty much in their underwear. Really, really badly frostbitten hands and feet. You know, really bad state. And in fact, Krivonishenko had even bitten off some of his own knuckles. Or maybe Doroshenko had bitten it off. Maybe they had a fight. I don't know. But Krivonishenko was missing some of his own actual knuckles. I mean, how grim is that?
And that wasn't frostbite.
That's not frostbite. Maybe severe hunger. Who knows? I don't know. Or maybe, like I say, they'd got in a fight or something like that. But they were found together next to a campfire, half dressed, in really bad way. You know, their hands and feet were blackened with frostbite. You know, really bad. And that was all they found on their first search mission. Just those two bodies. So we've still got 7 missing.
Yeah.
The one guy obviously made it back to civilization, Yuri Yudin.
So that's 3 out of the 10 accounted for.
Yeah.
Including that guy.
Yeah. Now, the rest of the... Well, 3 more were found, but not until April. Like 3 months later.
Wow. Okay.
So Igor Dyatlov was then found 3 months later.
And did you say he was the lead?
He was the lead hiker. The lead hiker, yeah. Zinaida Kolmogorova. I've ruined that name, I know. And Rustam Slobodin. They were all found together, the 3 of them.
Right.
And from the way they were positioned, it looked like that they'd turned back from the forest and started climbing back up the mountain towards the tent again, which is possibly why they weren't found earlier, because they'd sort of circumnavigated the route, and they were on their way back. Zinaida, I'm just going to call her Zinaida. She had like an injured torso on her. I can't remember now. I didn't note it down whether it was the left or right side, but she'd got a massive bruise all down her torso that looked like it had been caused by some kind of cylindrical object.
Cylinder kind of thing?
Like a cylindrical object, yeah, like I don't know, maybe a baseball bat, or you know, or a can of oxygen, perhaps. I don't know. That's the thing. There was no actual cylindrical object found, but that was the appearance of the bruise that was discovered in the autopsy. Rustam Slobodin.
Oh, that's the best name out of the bunch.
Yeah.
It makes me smile.
He actually had a fractured skull.
Oh, okay.
But Igor Dyatlov, he didn't seem to have any injuries other than just like the frostbite, and because I mean it was originally thought that these people just died of hypothermia.
But they've all got very different injuries.
Well, it's only at this point Zinaida Kolmogorova, obviously perfectly pronounced that time. She was the only one that. Well, no, she wasn't, because she had the torso. But yeah, Rustam Slobodin had a fractured skull. Igor was the only one that didn't seem to have an actual physical injury, just like the frostbite and you know, that sort of thing.
Okay.
So yeah, it was very much an open shut case that these people just, for some reason, were scared out of their tent, whether they heard something or saw something, and they just, like, you know, legged it and then died of hypothermia. Like I say, these are very, very cold conditions.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't really classified as a mystery back then, because I mean, hikers, they go missing all the time. They turn up dead, hypothermia. You know, it's quite a common thing. Well, not common, but you know, it happens more than we'd like it to.
Yeah.
Particularly in places like Russia.
So we were talking the other day about Everest still having bodies on top of there and things. So,
when we were at work the other day. Yeah, because once you get so high up Everest, no one's got the energy to carry you back down if you die. So you're up there forever, encapsulated in time. Yeah. Okay, so it wasn't until May that the rest of the bodies were found.
So this is another month later.
Yeah, another month or so later. Yeah. So Lyudmila Dubinina, Alexander Zolotaryov, Nikolai Thibault-Brignon, Alexander Kolevatov, they were all found in separate places at the bottom of a ravine past the forest, and they weren't sure if they'd actually fallen into the ravine, but they must have all fallen into it at separate times in separate ways, because they were spread out over quite a wide area.
Oh, so they weren't together?
No, they weren't together, not like the others. These
Oh.
ones had kind of maybe wandered off on their own and just got lost. And
So were they at the bottom of the same ravine, but
Yeah.
spread out?
yeah, but spread out,
Okay.
yeah, all over the place, sort of thing. Now, excuse me, Dubinina, she had her foot wrapped in a pair of trousers. Not her trousers.
Right.
The trousers belonged to Yuri Krivonishenko, the guy who bit off his own knuckles,
Right.
and was found 3 months earlier.
Uh-huh.
You
So
know,
when they
next
found
to the
him,
woods.
did he have no pants on?
He didn't have any. No, he didn't have any trousers. He didn't. I think he was practically naked, just in his underwear.
Wow. Okay. Right.
Him and Yuri Doroshenko, they were both found pretty much naked, just in their underwear. They might. I don't think they were. They might have been the footprints that didn't have any shoes or socks on.
Mm-hmm.
Alexander Zolotaryov was wearing the hat and coat of Lyudmila Dubinina. So for some reason she'd got Krivonishenko's trousers wrapped around her foot, but she'd given her hat and coat to Zolotaryov.
So they've swapped clothes.
It seemed to have done, yeah. Not a lot is said about Nikolai, but Alexander Kolevatov, he had a very bad head wound behind his ear, I believe it was, and a very oddly twisted neck. Like he'd been hit really hard around the back of the neck, and or possibly that might have happened in the fall down the ravine, if that's what actually happened to them. Obviously, they were found alone, and he weirdly had no eyebrows.
Right. This just keeps opening up more worms and more worms.
It's yeah.
You've already said 6, 7 different mysteries.
Yeah, I mean, well, is it a mystery? A bunch of students go on a hike and one ends up with no eyebrows. Is that really a mystery? I think good drinking game. But
Right.
it's reported that they didn't actually take any alcohol with them other than the rubbing alcohol that was in their first aid kit. So there's no way that they all had a party, got drunk, and then decided that Kolevatov was to lose his eyebrows. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I have been to a party where my mate Dan shaved off one eyebrow, and I think that was worse than both.
Exactly, yeah, that's normally what happens, isn't it? It's just the one eyebrow. When you get drunk, someone's got to lose one eyebrow.
I'm sure it was him, but yeah, it looked a lot worse than having both shaven off.
Yeah, but I mean, there's no report that he had no eyebrows when he left on the expedition. Why would you shave off your eyebrows before you head off into the wilderness in Siberia?
It's like an extra layer of warmth.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's not going to give you a lot of warmth, is it, eyebrows? But it's doing something.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, those are the conditions that they were all found in. Very strange conditions.
Yeah.
So, one of the first things that the government did was...
Right. Is this to find out what happened to them all?
Sort of. The first finger pointing, if you like, they pointed to the local tribe, like a nomadic tribe that just herds reindeer and stuff. They're called the Mansi.
Are they like Inuits?
Yeah, sort of like that. But they're very peaceful people. They've got no reason to go around attacking people. It was wondered whether these people had wandered into a sacred place to the Mansi, which is why the Mansi went wild and killed them. But, and here's the thing, hang on, I've got to find...
But I've never heard of an angry Inuit.
No, exactly. And the sacred place would not have been where they were found, because the Mansi called the peak that they were found on the Kholat Syakhl.
Ooh, you done well pronouncing that one.
Yeah. Now, do you have any idea what that translates as?
No, I don't even want to guess.
Can you take a guess?
Say it again for me.
Take Kholat Syakhl. Mate, you're going to love this.
Is it? Oh,
It's
no,
definitely not a sacred place.
Is it something to do with Star
It
Wars?
literally translates as Death Mountain.
Oh, Death Mountain.
So the Mansi, I mean, I'm guessing, I'm theorizing, they didn't kill the people that, this group of expedition, but they know that mountain is a bad place to go and they avoid it.
That's got a ring to it, Death Mountain. It's like Lord of the Rings style kind of thing, isn't it?
Oh, Mount Doom and that.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, so it's unlikely that the Mansi would have gone there to, attack them or anything. When they literally call the place Death Mountain, they don't want to go near the place.
I can't see many
They've
people
got apparently good reason to avoid the place, you know? It's
don't want to go down to Death Mountain down there now, do you?
No, exactly. But yeah, there's other theories. The government wanted it heavily to be blamed on avalanches.
Okay.
Now,
that's something I haven't thought of there. Avalanches.
An avalanche. I mean, that is what kills a lot of people out in the wilderness, particularly snowy climates. Obviously, you don't get avalanches anywhere else. But these were experienced hikers. They're grade 2 hikers. They're going for their final grade. They're not going to pitch camp in an avalanche zone. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They knew what they were doing. They've pitched it on as level ground as they could find. And also, if they were to cause an avalanche, that avalanche would have happened immediately. As soon as they started pitching tents, digging into snow and stuff like that, that would have unsettled the snowbank and it would have caused the avalanche before they even got a chance to pitch the tent. So their tent would have been pitched for several hours. They probably would have had dinner, started falling asleep before whatever it was happened, frightened them out.
And were they on quite a flat plane?
A fairly, as flat as you can get, halfway up a mountain.
Oh, okay. But like you said, they're experienced, so
they're experienced. They knew where to pitch a tent. They weren't going to pitch it in a danger zone for avalanches, as far as we can guess. But another theory came out that let's step on a little bit, right? So they've been found. The bodies have been reclaimed, taken to the local mortuary.
Yeah.
Where suddenly the KGB showed up.
Right. Okay.
The KGB showed up and they ordered in a massive barrel of alcohol. I don't know what that was for. Maybe some kind of embalming purposes or something like that. The KGB showed up and they wanted everything silenced. Now, there's a guy called Lev Ivanov who was the prosecutor on the case. He was looking into it and forming theories about what could have happened, and the KGB just silenced him completely. He suddenly took no more notice of it. It filed no more reports or anything, and it was a great many years. It wasn't until 1990 that he actually came out and said, I've been silenced by my superiors. They wouldn't let me talk about it.
1990?
Yeah.
Wow, okay. So you're talking almost...
like 30 years.
30 years. Wow, okay.
30 years he stayed silent on it.
Oh, got you. That's a long time.
And it was him, I think it was him, that actually provided the theory that it could have been due to parachute bombs that the military were testing in the area on the night of the disaster, which might even explain the lights in the sky that were blamed on aliens.
So has it been proven that they definitely let off bombs that night, or is it just speculation?
I at this point, I'd say speculation. I don't know for absolute certain, but that is one of the theories that is out there.
Okay, yeah.
It would explain injuries, like the torso injury and head injuries and stuff like that. Possibly not the biting off your knuckle, but it would also explain the fact that a lot of their clothes had traces of radiation on them that was above normal background radiation. So when the military went out there and found these bodies, apparently they took Geiger counters with them. And they were actually scanning the area for
and there was high levels.
And there was raised levels of radiation.
But the only thing that's confusing me is why they were wearing each other's clothes or had items.
Exactly. This is the thing. It doesn't explain why they would have swapped clothes and why one of a pair of trousers would be wrapped around a foot that didn't necessarily appear to be injured specifically.
Yeah, unless...
Certainly wouldn't explain a lack of eyebrows.
Yeah, see, that's another thing. I mean, just then I was thinking with the clothes, if something terrified them and they had to get out in a hurry and it's dark, you might pick someone else's clothes instead of your own. But then you said trousers were like wrapped round someone's legs, not
around
on
her foot. Yeah, yeah. She wasn't wearing them; she just wrapped them around.
Yeah, this is odd.
It's so strange, isn't it?
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, the case was closed within weeks of them finding it, and I think the government just put it down, or it was the official mortuary result was just hypothermia, and it stayed that way until 2019.
That's kind of recent.
Yeah, very recent, where the government reopened the case, but they would only accept theories that were related to avalanches and possibly hurricane force winds.
So they're not accepting anything to do with government.
Didn't want to know any of it. Bombs, nothing like that. Aliens, Bigfoot, nothing. They wouldn't explore any other possibilities other than avalanches and hurricane force winds. Now, there is a phenomenon called a katabatic wind. I've studied this in my drone flying.
Right.
Which is where a wind that goes over the top of the peak of a mountain, it gets accelerated to hurricane force levels as it comes down the slope.
Is that like similar to people in squirrel suits and stuff when they're jumping off? You know?
Yeah.
And they just seem to pick up speed real quick as they're going down mountains.
What it's done, I don't know about people in wingsuits, but people have set radio-controlled aeroplane speed records using katabatic winds, because they just literally loop over and over and over the peak of a mountain and use that wind as it crests that peak to catch more and more speed that they wouldn't be able to get otherwise. This is why I've studied katabatic wind anyway. But that can produce winds that are up to hurricane force, which is what the government were trying to say. But I'm thinking that 9 experienced hikers wouldn't pitch camp somewhere where they're likely to be badly affected by hurricane force winds. You know, they've got this kind of experience.
Yeah.
There is another theory that these kind of winds can produce very low resonant noises that can produce like hallucinations and panic effects in people.
Okay.
No, I don't know. That's still to me a flimsy theory.
Yeah, it seems a bit far-fetched, that one. And it also doesn't explain the radiation.
No, exactly.
It's like when you try and think of a theory that's plausible, you then go, oh yeah, but what about this bit? What about the eyebrows? What about the clothes? And then it's like a puzzle of mysteries.
Yeah.
Oh, it's fascinating.
So like I say, I mean, this whole story starts out as a mystery. It then kind of turns into a conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
And then that doesn't really explain itself, and you're back to a complete mystery again. I mean, the eyebrows, the people, the swapped clothes, the injuries. I mean, what the hell happened up there? No one can really explain it. There was a couple of Swedes that using new computer software. I think it was actually designed for a Disney film, you know, the film Frozen.
Oh yeah.
They had to develop advanced snow effects for that, so they wrote their own program, and these 2 scientist guys used that program and decided that it was maybe possible for it to be an avalanche based on their new theory. But again, like radiation, you know, that sort of thing. The fact that these are experienced climbers, they wouldn't have pitched camp in a potential avalanche zone.
Yeah.
To be honest, I want to just discount that.
Also, an avalanche, someone's not just going to randomly bite their knuckles off and take their clothes off. And
No.
An avalanche is going to take your eyebrows off.
No.
Well, I assume it wouldn't anyway.
So I mean, that is pretty much it, really. I don't have an explanation
I've got
for
a question for you. So
yeah, fire away.
the other thing that's confused me is like in certain cold climates, bodies are preserved, but I'm guessing the area they were in was so cold that it was causing frostbite, whereas in other cold cases where there's been frozen bodies, it hasn't been that level of cold. Because I'm just confused as to how they had frostbite, but then, because I listen to a few crime podcasts, and there's somewhere there's cold conditions, and it literally just preserves.
Oh
the
yeah,
body,
these were preserved.
and it stops the process of like rigor mortis.
The only other injuries that I don't think I wrote it down. I can't remember which one it is. It was one of the two of the last four were found with missing eyes.
Okay.
And I think it was Lyudmila Dubanina actually had not only her eyes were missing, but also her tongue was missing and part of her lips. Now, this we could put down to wildlife. Birds often go for
soft
eyes, particularly. We've seen on the farm that we work on.
That's the first thing they go for.
First thing that they go for is eyes. But for a tongue to go missing, is very strange. I mean, it's possible down to wildlife, maybe wolves or bears, but you'd have thought that wolves or bears or anything, a major wildlife would pretty much devour the entire body.
Yeah,
or
they'd take more.
Take all the fatty bits at least.
Man, that's good. It's a good theory.
I mean, it's just very strange.
Yeah, but I like stuff that's strange. And kind of unexplained.
It's definitely unexplained because I don't have a solid theory that I can present and say I believe this is what it is. I just don't know. There's so much.
I'm not convinced by an avalanche at all.
I'm not.
I don't know, and like it's weird because it's almost like in my mind, two of those theories together would make sense. Like so, for example, as you were telling the story, my brain was going, or maybe they did have some secret alcohol, got drunk, the eyebrows went, they swapped some clothes, they went to bed, and then an avalanche hit, and you could kind of almost piece a few things together, but then it just doesn't work. There's too many things for that to happen.
If they were actually hit by an avalanche, that tent would have been wiped out, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. And it also doesn't explain.
Might explain why they had to cut themselves out from the inside. But I would imagine that because there are pictures of the actual campsite online, and you can see the tent, and it's not fully erect anymore. It's just a piece of canvas on the ground. But it doesn't look like snow has completely engulfed it, which you'd imagine would happen if it was an avalanche. The people who found the place, the tent. Yeah. If it was an obvious avalanche, someone would have gone, well, it looks like an avalanche.
Yeah.
It's obviously an avalanche, The snow's come over the top of the freaking tent and hit them all. And yeah, you could imagine that would cause some injuries. But I just don't think that's possible.
The avalanche, to me, the only thing the avalanche explains would be maybe why they're all separate. Because an avalanche can just take you for a while, and maybe their bodies ended up in different locations. That's the only thing an avalanche would explain to me.
If it was an avalanche that took them in a wave of snow, you mean, and actually transported them down the hill, but then they wouldn't have walked out of the tent.
Oh yeah. So you could still clearly see the footprints.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I mean, it hadn't even been snowing. It hadn't covered the footprints with fresh snow.
And there was only 9 sets of footprints, so there was definitely not a Yeti.
Definitely no Yeti.
Oh man. Well, this is going to be quite high on the paranormality scale for me.
So. I'd say it's definitely high on the paranormality scale. I don't want to go as high as 9 because I think there are plenty of explanations that maybe you could piece together to find some kind of tangible explanation. I just don't know what that is.
Yeah, it's just such a crazy story. You just can't even think which theory is more likely to be because they're all in a way, they're all kind of as ridiculous as each other.
Yeah.
So,
table.
I mean, as far as the Paranormality scale, I'm going to have to go an 8 for this.
You're going 8.
Yeah, I might even give it an 8.2.
I was thinking about 7.5.
Uh-huh.
So I'm gonna go. Yeah, I'm gonna go 7.5.
Well, if I give it an 8.2, what's that balance it out? You're better at maths. 7.9, is it?
I would say 7.8.
All right, yeah.
Go with about 7.8.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
7.8. I mean, that's a pretty high rating, isn't
Yeah.
it? For what could be such an explainable story, but has got so many mysterious circumstances in there.
And the KGB as well, silencing them.
KGB. I mean, what do you?
That would suggest experiments, wouldn't it?
Radiation.
But then there's no other footprints.
It's
I've got it. No, the KGB borrowed a UFO and hovered over them. And then
sent down a Yeti.
Yeah. Made the Yeti tell them to swap clothes. And then the Yeti got frustrated and broke one of their necks.
Right, okay.
That's the only way.
And smacked them around their torso with their spare oxygen can.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Oh, man, I got no idea on that one. That's a good story, though. Well done for that one.
Yeah, thank you.
I like that one.
It's very interesting. I heard of it like a few years ago, and when we formed the podcast, you know, it was one of the first things that I put on the list.
Yeah.
Of stories that I wanted to cover, and obviously we got loads of stories on that list. But this one has always just mystified me, and this last couple of days as I've been researching it, it just boggles my mind.
Yeah.
I cannot even fathom what drove them people to cut their way out of a tent and walk down a mountain in bare feet and in their underwear. That is in such horrific conditions.
Yeah. What's this story called if people wanted to look at more into it?
The Dyatlov Pass Incident.
Dyatlov Pass. Yeah, because when you said it, I'd briefly heard about it, but when you started going into detail, I realised again I'd got something completely wrong.
Yeah, because you said, I think earlier, that you thought it was in Antarctica or something.
Yeah, I thought it was a bunch of explorers in Antarctica looking for penguins. And
they all took their clothes off and swapped. And
yeah, so I got it completely wrong. But it's very, very interesting.
Yeah.
So maybe people can look it up and think of a theory that they think.
Write in if you come up with a theory that you think is more plausible than ours. Well, not that we've actually come up with a theory.
Yeah, we have. KGB hired a UFO and they sent a Yeti down. Yeah.
Okay, but yeah, if anybody out there has a plausible theory that they want to send in to us for review, go ahead, paranormality.uk@gmail.com. Or even if you've got your own spooky story, let us know.
Yeah, send them in.
Always love to hear them, and if it's a good story and we think we can fill up some time with it, we'll let you know, and we'll invite you on, and we'll do an interview like we did my friend just a few weeks ago. And with that, I think we should wrap up.
Yep, sounds good to me, mate.
And so, yeah, I would say good night to you, my goodly friend.
Good night, my goodly friend.
And good night to all our goodly friends out there. And ta-ta.
Ta-ta.